Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Coyote's Workshop, or whatever the heck I'm calling this series. Alright, so this is a bit of a different, thing than we've been doing. And this is born out of necessity. I realized I have this game called Cool Water that's coming out soonish, around the new year on Steam. It's a desert survival game set in 1890s New Mexico, southern New Mexico, the Missio Valley. It's the region where I grew up, so has a lot of importance to me, and it's a sort of unique environment with some unique challenges for the player. But all that aside, I realized I completely forgot to make the cooking system. So, what I'm doing today is I set up a little bit of the stuff before I realized that I should be doing a devlog. I can close down some of the other things, and we can completely or mostly focus on the cooking for this devlog. That's what this devlog is. I'm going to be making a cooking system. I'm absolutely 100% sure that there's a better way to do this than how I'm about to do it. I don't even really have a roadmap of how I'm going to do this. I just know the stuff that I need to happen, and I know ways to make those things happen. And we just gotta figure out how to do them in the correct order, right? Working in Unreal Blueprints. The entire game is built by me as far as coding. I should probably edit that out. That silence while I cleared my throat. Anyways, all the coding, all the level design, all the writing was done by me. Most of the visual assets are fab assets with proper whatever the free use license is, the license that lets you use it, and as long as you don't make a certain amount of money and all that. I made sure that none of the assets I'm using are for demonstration purposes only. They're all. You should always make sure to do that in your projects, folks. You don't want to get caught up in something later. I've never heard of something like that happening, but I'm a little overcautious, you know? So, I'm mostly stalling while I sort of think of how I'm going to go about this. Usually when I do these devlogs, I have more of a solid idea of where I'm going with it, but I mean, obviously, we'll have to check the cookware. We'll have to cook a recipe. I'll need to check ingredients. That's gonna be a little bit of a double pinger there. We'll figure that out when I get there. You'll see what I mean. Check ingredients. I'm gonna let that go through. This should have an output for ingredients list. Oops. This should be. I've already got. This game is very late in development. Other than stuff I've forgotten, like the cooking system, it's basically I'm just tying it all into place and building up levels and making it more varied for the player. So a lot of the variables and stuff I'm going to use, you're going to have no idea what I'm talking about, and I do apologize for that. but I'm gonna try and explain everything that I use, at least to make it informative. Alright. So, we now have an ingredients list that'll come through. Cook the recipe, check the cookware. What do I have to cook on? What am I cooking? Also, I'm gonna need to check recipes, which means I'm gonna want either an array or a struct. I'm overcomplicating this. Overcomplicating. This will be done on the cooking actor. All it needs to know is if the player is a cook. Cool Water does not have recipes for the player to collect. Either they know how to cook things, or they're just basically throwing stuff on fire. So, all it needs to know is if the player is a cook, and then within the cooking actor, cooking gear here, is where I'm going to do all the fun stuff with the interface. So it'll check that. Why explain what I can explain while I'm doing it, right? Okay, where's cooking? There's cooking. Back to class defaults. What am I doing? Forgot what I was doing. Anyways, in cooking gear, the first thing. Wait a minute. Oh, my bad. No. Okay, that's... This was silly of me. There we go. Okay. Yeah, the widget's gonna need to know this. You know what? I'm double extra silly because I was correct the first time. For cooking skill. Because, oh, and I need to... Yeah, that's... See, that would have been ugly. And it needs to be the input. See, if you give something, if you give one of these functions an output, and it also has an input, and you then delete the output, watch. So let's see, output, input, delete that, and it stays like that. Now watch what happens when you go to call it. It makes a liar out of me. It used to be it would... Okay, so what has happened to me in the past is it makes it like one of these. So I messed up the order that I messed up, but just remember that there's a way you can do things in which it gets things really weird. So be careful with that. Oops. By example. Okay, alright. So, check ingredients, check cookware, check for cooking skill. What am I trying to do? Yeah, because this is going to come from the player. Right? Like I said, still figuring all this out in my head and as I go along, so away we go. Now see, when the cooking blueprint, or the cooking widget blueprint, let's just make a custom event for testing. Check cooking. Pears. Well, I just don't know how this is going to work. I'm overcomplicating, but what's the easiest way to simplify? Okay. Because cooking gear... Cooking gear is going to have to be tied to the widget. Isn't it? Yep, cooking gear and the widget are going to be united. So... let's also do this. How long is this video? Okay, I'm gonna pause it here because it's almost 4:20, and due to the magic of video time travel, it'll seem like the 7 minutes I just went through is just seconds to you. far out, right? Alright, what was I doing? Right. Check for the cooking skill. That can be done in here. No, in here. I don't know if that's necessary. Well, we can make it necessary, right? I know these won't be necessary, but I hate deleting them. I feel bad, you know? They're there since the beginning. They're like the founding nodes of the entire blueprint. Alright. So, we're getting all the actors with the interface. That interface is cooking? Yes, it is. For each of them, I will be doing what am I doing? Check for cooking skill. I just don't think I'm doing this right. Did it wrong. What a terrible devlog this is turning out to be. Did it wrong. But learning from our mistakes is a big part of learning. So now it just needs a variable that says that. And we do need this. I'm overcomplicating this, but it's gonna work. I'm just having a time of this. Now I'm going to get all the actors with the interface cooking. And for each of them, however Actually, only the first one, just in case there's a... Well, look at this as a failsafe. This means that if for some reason 2 things with BPI cooking are in the world, like something got double spawned, that means it isn't going to run this logic on each of them. It's just going to run it on the closest or first one. As I understand it. Okay, so on the closest or first one, we are, what did I call it? Set cooking skill. Why is this happening? Oops. To determine this, I believe it's in a tag. Yes, it's a trait in the tags. So, let's go ahead and... Oh, forget it. I know what it is. I say. So anyways, get the player tags. Break it? No. Here's tag. Switch on tag. This should happen when the loop is done. Hold on. Needs to happen before it's done, actually. Whoa. What's going on here? Whoa, that was weird. Graph was all like, what? Why did that happen? Y'all saw that, right? Okay. So, has camping, has cooking, doesn't have cooking. So. When it sets the cooking skill, bloop, just like that. As I said, I'm not sure if this was the most graceful way to do this, but it's probably gonna work. Let's go ahead, put the cooking gear in the scene. Alright. And it sets the cooking skill. Print the string. And let's make this a very obvious color. And make it go for a long time because when I do the intro thing, stuff stays on false. Okay. That is actually, that is actually correct. So, let's go ahead and say that we're a camp cook by default. And if I'm correct, true, perfect. Okay. So when the player is created, it looks at the cooking gear and says, hey, we can cook. Or, I ain't know how to cook, what you talking about? Done on that. It would be a logical place to cut the episode, even though half of the episode, shoot, 80% of this episode was me not knowing what the heck I was doing. So let's give you a little bit of bonus time after you fast forwarded through all that. Okay. Gonna need this. That. I'm not sure if this is correct. It is. I don't like how intertwined this is getting with other things. But I think by its very nature, it needs to do it. Each. And on each. What am I doing again? Oops. Forgot a step. you doing? Didn't I delete that? Did I just do the exact same thing that I had already done? This is another way to do that exact same thing, where you only send it to the one in case there's a redundancy problem. You can just check if it's 0, which it should be. It should be the only one with it. The reason I use that system is because I have multiple kinds of campfire in CCW, but all of them share a lot of common functions, so I didn't want to make a lot of different interfaces, so I only look for one of each on certain calls, and it just seems like a good practice to get into. What am I doing? Sending ingredients. There we are. Plop the inventory. Yeah, I'm sending the whole inventory as ingredients, but only the stuff in there about ingredients are going to matter to this thing. So now we have that. Make sure that's happening. Yep. Okay. So now the cooking gear knows if the player can use it well, and it knows what it has access to, what can go in it. The cookware itself. I believe. Now hold on. Okay, then that means I put that all in the tags. Needs to be a container, right? Not just one tag. Yes, correct. Okay. Essentially, your character will always be able to eat something raw, and they will always be able to use a stick to cook something on. It might not last long enough to cook things safely. I don't know if I'm going to have a cook time element or not. Like I've said, I'm making all of this up as I go. But that's the essentials that you can always cook with, is raw and with a stick. Okay, and now we know all of that. exists on the cookware itself. This is wrong. I'm gonna need to change it. Tag container. Huh? Deny. Did I? That was silly of me, wasn't it? There we go. Now that should work. Now let's find out. Since I'm just testing this, I'm not going to go through the effort of setting up a little transmission gate thing. I don't know if this works this way. Literal to that's the one I'm looking for. To string and print that string. And the color can be, let's go with this light pink. And you're gonna see why. Campfire. Come on. Isn't it the campfire? No. No. I've done something different that I forgot about. I think maybe. What in the devil calls it? Having a bit of a brain fart here. Is it the level blueprint that's doing it? It must be. There it is. All right. So instead, we are doing what now? Let's see what happens. I'm gonna regret this. didn't need it to be on the viewport at all. I just needed it to report these things. Well, it reported them twice. Which seems odd to me. Let's investigate this before we shut down for the night. They're both the same thing. You just add a fail-safe to prevent them calling twice. Now, hold on. Give me another color I haven't used yet. That awful pastel green should do. Yep, it's just calling the cooking gear twice. Huh. Isn't that interesting? Why is it doing that, I wonder? Equals 0 might not be as trustworthy as I thought. Ah, it's just in the wrong place. So, seems to work, right? Okay. Go ahead and trim all that nonsense, of course. It's good to have in the first place. I don't know what I'm thinking, linking the level. I really have to clean this up. So the next devlog will be how to correct some really, really poor shoddy not goodness in your blueprints. None of this should be on the level blueprint. I don't know what on earth I was thinking, because simple way to show you why this is gonna get ugly. Nah, a lot of that is the actual plants and objects and everything. Well, I could be wrong about how that works, because I was quite sure that I would be referencing things I didn't need to reference. Thought I would be calling those widgets. Am I calling widgets? Or edges, I don't even know what that is. Doesn't look like I'm calling any widgets. Do level blueprints not work like that? Am I misunderstanding how I'm doing this? Shouldn't it at least be calling the cooking widget? Either way, I clearly was I wasn't giving myself enough credit because, silly me, these use interfaces, so they're not going to be referencing. They're not going to be doing the dang old, they're not going to be connected to each other. I was not giving myself enough credit. I did it right, and that means my brain is now too tired to properly continue developing this system. So, I thank you all for joining me. Sorry it got completely ridiculous at one point. Seeing some... What is that? Anyone else see that? There it is. Why is that happening? What are you, little blip? Okay, yeah, obviously I need to stop recording now, and thanks for watching the ramble.